It is number 9. We remembered again. Look at that.
Thank you, and welcome back, everybody.
3 or 4.
3 or 4. We're out here. We're almost done. Not that we're waiting till the end, because
No.
I'm having a great time. We're all having a great time today. You guys are being a fantastic audience. The engagement has been incredible. So I want to thank everyone.
Oh, great. I'm doing the thing again.
I want to thank everyone again.
Guys in the chat, you get that because this is what happens in production sometimes. Look at that. That's what production looks like right there.
I want to remind you again for the clip watchers, like, subscribe, comment on this, share it with your friends. You can find us again here, obviously, on the YouTube at Salt of the Streets. We have our Instagram.com/saltofthestreets. Facebook, Facebook.com/Salt of the Streets. Patreon.com, Salt of the Streets. If you want to help us make more and better content, you can find all this on saltofthestreets.com, including our personal social media. I am at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram.
And I'm going to say this real quick, interject, and say that if you want to get part 5 of 4 of tonight's show,
Yes.
then you jump over to that Patreon real quick. Make sure to subscribe at any tier, and you will get that later tonight after we're done recording. I will post it on Patreon tonight. So get over there. Be there or be squared.
That's right.
I was almost as good as your book one the other day.
Almost.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. And as I was saying, on the Patreon, we have the newsletter that drops on the last day of the month. We have the review preview that drops on the first day of the month. We have clips that drop every day on our Instagram. We have the newsletter. I just said that. The beer shows that drop on Fridays. If you need a haircut, Swell Blended. If you're in the local area, if you need a skateboard, go down to location, skate shop, and get one. If you want to watch some video games, you can watch Colin's wife, Lexi Kyle, on Twitch. And if you need some cakes in the local area, you have leggings and aprons on Instagram. I believe that is everything. So
It's about to get dark.
excuse me.
Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen.
For segment number 3, we are going to be talking about Russia and Ukraine, and also a little bit Belarus and a little bit China. So
It's kind of the whole, it's almost like a global situation.
it's almost
Right?
yeah,
Almost.
yeah,
Maybe.
a worldwide situation or something.
Yeah.
this week.
Something. I don't know. Weird.
No good. So all of this obviously is very time specific.
Very
if
much.
you're listening to this next week, things are going to change. They're going to be different. Things happened on our way here. I got a thing from Twitter as I pulled into Colin's driveway into the studio today that Zelensky was meeting with a bunch of officials from the United States and Putin was meeting with the Prime Minister of Israel. So
Yeah, I have some.
things are changing all the time.
I have some up-to-date stuff of right before we went to the show.
Yeah.
Some very late-breaking stuff coming out of that Zelensky and U.S. official meeting.
There was there were ceasefires announced yesterday that today Russia said they were going to end.
Yeah.
So anything could happen at any time. So we're going to give kind of a brief timeline of the things that have happened since then. I have one.
Yeah,
because
because
here.
we did a small timeline last week.
Yes.
And then I tried to put that clip out this last week. That way it's relatively fresh coming into this. So if you would like a kind of a precursor to the last kind of week or two of, movements that we're going to cover here, go ahead and check out that clip right here on the YouTube channel. It'll be a great fill-in for you.
I think the day after we left here, I think it was the 20. This was not the day after we left here, but I think on the 22nd, Russia officially recognized those 2 eastern portions of Ukraine, the 2 districts, as sovereign nations, and then obviously immediately started to enter into those two sovereign areas because they're the pro-Russian portions of the Ukraine. They were already of Ukraine. There are already pro-Russian soldiers there. There probably was already Russian forces there. The day after that, they made their official break into Ukraine from Belarus, from the 2 states that they recognized as sovereign nations, and also from Crimea.
So at this point, we're like Belarus is on the north, the 2 provinces were on the east, and then from Crimea on the south.
A classic pincer-style movement in towards Kiev, and we'll see you soon, Lenny. Thank you for joining us. And then also, as Colin said, the push from the east in those 2 districts. I'm not sure what the names of them are. We would mispronounce them almost certainly. So I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, but at this point, I'm not going to linger too much on that fine detail.
I always remember the Donbass, but I don't quite remember the other one.
Yeah, because that's just the region. Like
the Donbass region.
Yeah, these are 2 actual the states or districts or counties or whatever they're considered there that he recognized as sovereign nations. On the 26th, after 2 days of fighting and seemingly some success by Ukrainian army to repel and hold off the Russian forces. The U.S. gave an additional $350 million in military aid. And the 27th, Belarus officially joins Russia in the Ukrainian invasion. So that's when they are sending Belarusian soldiers and forces in from Belarus along with the Russian soldiers. On the 28th, Ukraine appeals to NATO for emergency admission, and NATO says Ukrainian addition is not on the docket. And Ukraine seems to be holding Russia, and Russia has military supremacy. Why is this happening? So we'll come back to that. I'm going to run through the timeline, and then we'll hit some of these questions and stuff that I've written down here along the way.
Okay.
The 28th, 12 Russian diplomats were expelled from the United States. The United States accused them of espionage, and so we expelled them. And that was the same day that China said that they were... Oh, I'm sorry, that's something else. That was on the 23rd that they invaded. Last episode. Sorry, obviously didn't have these in the correct order. And then I have the next day that I have is on the 3rd of March. The largest Ukrainian city yet, Kherson, had been taken officially by Russian forces, and that's in the south, correct?
Yep.
On the way from Crimea up there.
Yeah.
There's reportedly there are people in bunkers throughout Ukraine because there's so much shelling going on. The shelling of Kiev has been going on for a week now, I think.
Yep.
They're shelling other areas from outside of Ukraine. And
Kharkiv is another big city that's over on
Yep.
the east side that's being essentially under siege right now.
There are food shortages that were starting to happen in Ukraine. There are utilities losses just simply from the infrastructure damage. At this point, there were 2,000 civilian deaths. I'm not sure what the most up-to-date number is on that, but that was on the 3rd. That was 2 days ago.
And I'll tell you, that number changes depending on who you get it from.
Yes.
It's very strange.
Yes.
It's
And
like,
I believe
the numbers right now are so all over the place
Right.
on both sides. It's really hard to follow this thing, man.
On this day, Russia had finally acknowledged that they had taken deaths, that they had received casualties, and they had put the number at 490. Ukraine is saying it's several thousand.
Yeah.
There's no real way to know that. 490 is what Russia was willing to acknowledge had been killed in the fighting.
Yeah. Believe it or not, in times of war, most of the time, there are NGOs that will be the most reliable sources for
Right.
casualty numbers. And even then, it's going to be hairy.
And 490, I believe it took, not took, right? But the United States didn't have 490 casualties in the Afghanistan war for almost a year.
Yeah.
And so 490 people, even if it's only that, is an immense amount of losses on the Russian side in 10 days or whatever it is.
Yeah.
When the 23rd was the day
Compared to the
evening
level
they
of-
invaded.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's just compared to the level that we're used to seeing over the last 20 years. But
Yes.
this is nothing to what it could be as we go forward.
There are reports of logistical issues and supply issues on the Russian side, like food shortages. There's an enormous convoy that's supposedly stalled there. There are
Yeah.
gas issues or something. There are trucks that are being left on the side of the road. There are a lot of trucks whose tires are messed up because apparently they were stationed too long outside of the border before they moved. And so there are a lot of enormous trucks. I was reading a thread just yesterday of all these examples of Russian trucks that the tires were exploded because they were sitting for too long and they weren't driven enough. And so improper care for their equipment is part of the reason.
You got to remember, too, it's March in Russia.
Right.
It's cold. It's cold. Real cold.
There is every indication at this point that the intent of Russia is to intensify the siege on Kiev and on the surrounding cities.
Yeah.
Said there's a 40-mile military convoy that is trying to work its way to Kiev. So there's
This southern front is moving closer to Kiev much faster than the northern front is.
Yeah, and part of that is because they were able to establish themselves so much in Crimea and
Yeah.
stage everything so much from there. And also that's all their navies from there. So I imagine there's just a better supply line from the Crimean front than from anywhere else.
Well, and we might do this a little later, too. I might pull up the map, show Google Earth, right? You spend a lot of time. You hear this a lot when you talk about Ukraine now, as people refer to it as like Europe's breadbasket, stuff like that. So I got to looking, and there's a ton of farmland all over Ukraine. It's mostly farmland. It's kind of like the U.S., right?
It's called the breadbasket of Soviet,
I thought it was breadbasket of Europe.
There you go.
Yeah, but it reminds me that, or the tactic they're using is very reminiscent, I think, of like what most conflict I think is going to come to at this point is they retreat to population centers where you can concentrate people, you have a controlled front, and that's why most of these things now are taking place in like this city or
Yeah.
this town. Because it's all siege. If you don't have enough to form lines, you fall back to strong points, and that's what we're seeing at this point. And I think that's part of the reason why the Southern Front is pushing up so fast. They've gotten past most of the major cities and
Right.
major points that way.
And to your point, like modern warfare is no longer. In World War II, the last time we saw really anything like this, trench warfare still existed. They were still literally digging trenches in the ground, and that's where the lines were. This is where it stops.
Yeah, we just quit calling them trenches. We started calling them foxholes and things. But you'd have a line of foxholes.
Right. And now it's largely based on bases. You take a certain area, you build a base there, and then it doesn't fall. So if there isn't large cities, if there isn't places you can fall back to, like you said, you build one.
Yeah,
and
like
now
right outside of Kabul.
Now you control this sector. You have this area, this district that you have laid out, and you have control over this. You have patrols that are going to walk a certain area, that are going to go, not walk, but patrol a certain area, and do recon in that area to make sure that things are fine. So fine to whatever, but.
It allows you to help maintain control over certain areas.
Yes. So it's just not as well defined or easily defined as it used to be the last time fighting like this happened in Europe. So
not that it couldn't develop into that.
No.
Like if this went full bore world war and there's, a decisive NATO front, then you'd see a little bit of a mixture, I think. But like right now, Ukraine is just a tiny little nation trying to defend against the giant military might of a superpower.
Right.
So it's a more guerrilla tactic right off the bat. It's very American Revolutionary, massive armies from the British, guerrilla warfare of colonists.
Yeah.
It's very similar style, which is part of the danger into how long this might go on, depending on what Russia does and how they handle it.
It's also important to know before we move on that we don't know shit about shit. We are, as always, two guys here to identify the situation. We're going to try and explore some of the nuances. We're going to try and explain the situation a little bit. This is an extremely serious situation. It's very, very, very serious.
Oh, yes.
And not that we're going to make light of it or anything like that, but
if you're not black-pilled by the end of this, I've failed in my mission.
We've been wrong within the last 2 weeks. So I just don't want to present it like we know exactly what we're talking about or what's going to happen, because all anybody can do is
we can't
express conjecture. That's all that anybody can do at this point is guess what's going to happen. So
and we can't give too much of ourselves over to our normalcy bias, is what you call that, where you're just like, this could never happen, man. This hasn't happened in my lifetime. It's not going to happen again. Come on now. Well, yeah, we'll develop that further, but just know that anything is possible.
Yes. So we'll run through these cards first, and then I have some points here that I have written down. Do you think are we at war?
If you ask me, hard yeah. If you ask me, we're at World War right now.
Yeah.
If you were to ask me, I think the only difference right now is that I don't know if it's going to happen. We could have a world war and never actually declare war against anybody.
Right.
We don't care anymore. But that
do everything through UAMS.
Yeah. I mean, we are sending taxpayer-funded weapons, munitions, and aid to a nation that is directly under attack by another foreign nation. This is not you're under attack from a group of tribes or insurgents from within your own country. You're not going through a civil war. This is another nation taking out another nation. This is it's a usurpation of sovereignty of another nation, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that has not happened in the modern kind of like liberal democratic rule of the West era. It isn't, borders have been very, very defined now at this point. They've been very sacred. And this is the first time we've seen like a modern day nation invade another modern nation. It's one thing when we're invading Afghanistan and Iraq, and when the Russians are invading Afghanistan and Syria and like all these different things. It's different there because it's not superpowers going to, going at each other.
It's proxy wars.
It's a couple layers in proxy wars. We're funding some groups that fund other groups that fight the war. You know, it's like there's a couple layers of separation there. But this is straight up the entirety of the Western nations sending military equipment
Right.
and supplies, and some populations are volunteering to go fight against another superpower. This is you're describing a world war. There
can
are
do it here.
economic sanctions all over. We're cutting them out of the banking system. They're looking for other forms of currency exchange.
Other nations are saying that they won't take part in the sanctions.
Yes.
China has come out and said that they will resume or they will maintain normal economic activity with Russia as the United States sanctions happen.
Yep.
So
And people are declaring sides.
India's doing the same
India's
thing.
doing the
India's
same
not-
thing. They're not messing around. And this is weird because India is also traditionally one of our more traditional allies in this type of situation. But the Swiss have, for the first time in like modern comprehension, not declared neutrality, and they've sided with the West. And now you have all sorts of nations asking to be part of the EU and to be part of NATO. And you know, Finland's getting real concerned because they border Russia on the very northern side. I mean, everybody's starting to declare themselves a side. And if that isn't,
declaring a lot of stuff.
yeah, there's a lot of people declaring a lot of stuff, and it's highly uncomfortable. And I don't know how to describe that other than war. I don't care if we haven't declared war against people we've been at war with for a very long time. Okay,
Right.
this is not
We
how
never
we do
declared
things
war against
anymore.
Iraq, Afghanistan.
Yes. It's also why there's no argument. You know, people talk about like the Hague now bringing up like war criminal charges against Putin. I'm like, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, dude.
Yes.
This is a war, man. This is not, I don't care if you don't understand how this works. If this nation, Russia, has the power to do this, and the rest of the world right now is afraid. They're very afraid at going too far, too fast with this thing because they know how powerful Russia is. This is not good, man.
Yeah.
Like, this is exponentially more dangerous than any time throughout anybody that's been alive right now's history, except for maybe the few hangers-on from, like, you know, World War II era. Not many of them left, but like nobody else has lived through this shit. The Cold War concept is very, very different now because we can use nuclear weapons now as modernized nations in 2022 and not completely destroy the entire world. It's possible to do that. We have all sorts of different sophisticated tactical nuclear weapons and all this stuff now. It's not the safety of mutually assured destruction does not necessarily exist anymore like it used to.
Word. So we'll talk about that, and then because I have a question on that, and then we'll hit Zeke's comment here because I think that's important. The mutually assured destruction thing, because I'm having trouble getting on board with the fear of nuclear warfare, and maybe I don't have a good enough understanding of what that would look like. I am personally still under the understanding, whatever you want to put it, right? That mutually assured destruction exists, right? Because to me, to think that Russia is going to launch a nuclear missile either means that he doesn't believe in mutually assured destruction, or he doesn't believe that we will retaliate, or he just doesn't care. Putin, I mean, just doesn't care what happens. And I just struggle to believe that, you know. I don't, because he's not stupid, you know. Vladimir Putin is not stupid, and so he knows, and especially because there are Chernobyl is right in his backyard, you know.
Yeah,
he
they recently took it back,
so he knows what the dangers are of nuclear warfare, and so
that was in his heyday.
I'm definitely not trying to say like he's just posturing, you know, but I just struggle to get myself to the point of like really thinking that there will be nuclear warfare.
Okay, so my response to that would be, like, nuclear warfare nowadays doesn't necessarily mean like ICBM's largest bomb in the world type of situation. That's the way all nuclear weapons used to be that, but now they're much smaller, much more, you know, we have tactical nuclear devices that can have like an effective blast range of like a tenth of a mile and radiation fallout of up to a mile or something like that. They're much more, they can be much more low yield, which makes me think that, like, especially with how much propaganda is flowing right now and the inability to actually determine what's true and what's not. Obviously, all these videos of these giant explosions and stuff coming out right now, everybody's going to think are real when they see them. But also remember, we make movies about that kind of stuff every day. So I don't know. I'm just saying I wouldn't hold it past him to say, like, drop a small tactically, small yield tactical nuke on a massive city through a small piece of artillery.
Yeah.
And take out, like a couple blocks of a city all at once. And then he could probably get away with that for a while until the world decides, like, that actually is proven what happened before anybody does anything. And if it's something that, I don't want to say like that's small, but when you think of a nuclear blast, man, you think of that island, the island tests and shit like that, and yeah, it's going to be big, but I would say, I guess I'm just more concerned that we have the capability to get into nuclear conflict without going as big as everybody might traditionally think nuclear conflict would go.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not going to launch all the ICBMs all around the world because, the tip of Manhattan got destroyed. Like, we might. Manhattan would be a bad idea. Let's just say over in Ukraine. Like, if a few blocks in Odessa got wiped out, and we spent a week arguing about whether or not that's true or Russian propaganda or whatever, and then we find out it is true, like, the ICBMs aren't going to be flying in between now and then.
And to your point,
that would be my guess.
Well, to your point of people not knowing, I don't have a good enough understanding. I'm realizing this now, so I need to do more research. I don't have a good enough understanding of modern nuclear arms because to me, that's what I'm thinking. If you know that they launched a nuclear missile, because it has to be, I don't know, right? I would assume if you launch a nuclear
missile
weapon, you would know about it, right? Someone would know about it. But is that only if it's an ICBM? Like, I don't.
Yeah, like if it's a nuclear missile launch,
a small nuclear weapon, and
like out of a submarine or something. That too. I'm just saying, you can have a shell that looks like a giant artillery shell.
Yeah.
Brought over to a howitzer and shot, and then boom, it's a nuclear device now.
Okay.
They're not all just missiles necessarily.
Right.
Suitcase nukes and shit.
Right.
You get some Russian agent walking in downtown Kyiv or whatever, and it's got a briefcase with a nuclear bomb in it, and drops it, and then next thing you know, boom, this entire 2 blocks of this city go up and disappear.
So what I was going to say, to your point of people not knowing, right? During the Syrian civil war,
yes,
right? Russia was the one that were deploying chemical weapons, and the entire time the United States was saying it's Assad, but it wasn't. And we now have, proof upon proof that it wasn't him, that it was the Russians.
Shout out Tulsi.
So exactly. So to your point, they're obviously pretty good at. They're good at, but they have the ability to hide shit and make it look like someone else is doing it, So let's address Zeke's comments. So we'll scroll up a little bit on there, right?
So we got...
Said, I wouldn't put too much stake in Russia continuing to fight for a long period of time. Russia has a more fragile economy than most people realize. That's why a majority of the forces fighting in country in Ukraine are from Belarus. The majority of Russian power hasn't been used yet at all. And I don't think, we aren't arguing that the majority of Russia's power has been used. I'm struggling to understand what you mean by them coming from Belarus, because they're coming from 3 different fronts. Certainly the ones coming from Belarus are from there, but there are 3 different fronts to this invasion into Ukraine. So they couldn't all be coming from Belarus.
Yeah, if Moldova was a Russian puppet state like Belarus is, they'd be coming in also from Moldova. Like, that's the way it would go. The only reason they're not coming in from... Yeah, they don't really have another entrance into Ukraine just through those states.
But it sounds to me like he's saying that they're not... The ones from Belarus are... Certainly they're not all Russian forces, but Belarus hadn't officially even...
They didn't officially declare war, or they didn't. I don't think they've actually officially declared their siding
But
yet.
they've joined the invasion.
Yes.
They have officially
They
joined the
have.
invasion, but it was like 2 days after the Russians had already invaded into Ukraine.
Yeah, it was
So they
kind of
couldn't,
once they slowed
couldn't
up.
all be Belarusian forces.
No, and a lot of the because I remember seeing the videos of the Russian tanks through supposed Belarus, like a couple days before the actual invasion took place too. So like, I don't know
They've been
how
mounting
much.
forces there for months. They've been mounting forces on the border of Ukraine for months. I
Yes.
don't understand
And that's-
the argument that they're all from Belarus. There's obviously Russian forces. There are Russian soldiers being killed. I mean, there are.
I would say this real quick. I would argue the fact that the difference between a Belarusian soldier and a Russian soldier are almost non-existent. The relationship that Belarus has with Russia
Is a puppet state.
is a puppet state. They literally are the same forces. So even if they were, or if they were Russian soldiers, if they were Belarusian soldiers,
Right.
doesn't really matter.
I think Zeke is getting ahead of us. We have not yet started to talk about the economy, and we have not yet gotten into questions about Ukrainian or about Russian forces, right? So that was
We'll
one
get
of the,
there.
It's one of the next points that I was
Yep.
going to make, right? Is we have seen some of these logistical issues, right? We have seen the convoy that's being held up. It's 40-mile convoy. There are, debate as to what the issue is. We've seen enormous amounts of death coming from the Russian forces. We know that the Russian Federation has an enormous military. We know of their military might. So
Yeah.
my only question to that effect would be why this is happening the way that it's happening. I'm not sure
Well, like the limited warfare version.
whether yes, because
Would you refer to this as limited warfare on Russia's part,
um
in your perspective?
certainly, because they could have. I don't know. I don't know.
That's the tough.
I'm gonna say I don't know.
Yeah.
Right, but all these logistical issues and all of this bullshit. There's like a huge amount of conscripts that are reportedly being sent in from the Russian side. That there are people that they picked up and forced to go there, and so
It
that's-
also might
they
just be
also went.
propaganda.
I'm not taking any of their responsibility away. You don't
Yeah.
have to fucking kill civilians, right?
Yeah.
So. But the issues that they are running into, the amount of resistance that is being put up, that they're unable, to this extent thus far, unable to overcome, right? The issues with the convoy, the issues with feeding their own people, with putting fuel in their own trucks. How is it? I don't know if they underestimated the Ukrainians, because that seems silly. I don't know if they underestimated the support they would get from the West, because that also seems silly. I don't know if he overestimated his own forces, because that also seems silly.
That's what doesn't make sense about this to me. When you look at we could guess for days about why Ukraine is still a sovereign nation. We could ask all day why that is the case. Why hasn't Russia done this? Because I'm pretty sure we both agree that if they wanted to, they could have taken it by now.
Yes.
Right? But we'll probably never know why they didn't, when I think that they probably could have. Unless, we could guess all day. We can pontificate all day onto the possibilities why, but I mean, at the end of the day, Ukraine still is a sovereign nation to this day. The president talked to our Congress this morning. I mean, and there's a reason that's the case, and I don't know what it is. It's probably just the fact that if it went harder, maybe the Western response would have been harder too. Like if it would have been more severe, maybe this is when Joe Biden was talking before this happened, he said, well, it depends on what kind of, invasion it is. If it's a minor incursion, do you call this a minor incursion? I mean, it seems pretty heated, but it's also, I'm left asking the question, why didn't they take over the entire Ukraine like they did in Crimea, where they just showed up one day, all undercover, in disguise, and then they all took their disguises off. We're here to kill a bunch of people, arrest a bunch of people, take over the government, and it's done. It's over.
And my understanding of
They
that...
could.
Well, first let me say this. Maybe our question is to Zeke's point, right? His third statement is, long story short, fellas, we're obviously being baited into conflict. So maybe that is... Our question is to his point, that he's doing this to bait as many countries as he can. Putin, right, is doing this to bait as many countries as he can into the World War conflict, to get to get a best view as possible of what the sides are going to be.
Give it time for nations to decide whose side they're on.
Yes.
For the nations, to choose the side.
And then when you know the logistical and realistic possibility of winning that conflict, then you decide, do I just push on through and take Ukraine and stop? Or do I keep going? Do I start using a little bit of miniature nuclear weapons? Do I start doing more chemical weapons? There are reports and videos of them using cluster munitions, within cities. Anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's one bomb breaks up into a bunch of bombs, usually kills a lot of civilians. That's why they're not, I believe Geneva Conventions, they're not used, but Russia don't give a fuck. So
it's
that
called
may
war
be,
for a reason.
yeah, so that may be to Zeke's point that the reason that it is limited is to give it time to
for people to pick a side
ferment and see what the beer is going to taste like before you decide if you want to sell it or keep it for yourself.
Ooh, interesting. Let it ferment and see what the beer tastes like. No, I think that's a good possibility, especially because we know, but he's what, 70 years old, Vladimir Putin, almost 70. There's obviously wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for him to maybe be slipping a little bit or even get desperate or something like that. You never know.
I can see
the possibility exists. It's certainly not zero, but there seems to be easier motivations to find than rely on senility or, the Biden problem.
Yeah.
He's not Biden. He's not that old. He's a very spry looking 70-year-old. So I don't know. It doesn't seem this stupid. This all seems like it has to be planned of some kind. I mean, it's Ukraine, man.
Yeah.
They have no problem taking that thing. They're just gauging. I'm just thinking out loud here. If they're engaging in the manner they're engaging now, it's just so they try not to draw too much attention. If they don't break the speed limit and only do 10 miles an hour all the way till they take the capitals and take everything, then nobody will say anything. If they do it too fast, NATO's going to get too scared and somebody's going to screw up and, there'll be some damn foolish incident in one of the Balkan states and then boom, it's all official. But I don't know. Like I said earlier, you can't convince me right now that it's not World War III already. In the modern day context that we wage war, they don't need to get American approval to go to war. They really don't anymore.
I think that the West largely, at least in the media, largely overestimates how much Vladimir Putin gives a fuck what anybody thinks about him. Mm-hmm. I think, especially with the sanctions and stuff like that, and we're going to keep talking about it, and we're going to call out his actions before he can do them so people know about it. I think they're still waiting for him to be like, oh, wait, now no one's going to want to do business with me, And he doesn't care.
He doesn't
I
care,
really
man.
don't think that he cares.
Nope,
And
I don't think he cares.
that speaks to a simplistic view that people have of Vladimir Putin. That I took a conversation with Brian, right? He was like, he's a nationalist. He's just a nationalist,
He's not a fucking Dr. Evil, man. He's not a cartoon villain.
No.
If you treat him like that, he's going to ruin your day.
And that's what my concern is underestimating him, And I don't think that...
Don't make him a caricature.
Yeah, and I don't think that, people in the government are necessarily doing that, but certainly the American people, they're, he's just a nationalist. He's just trying to spread it around, the Russia. Yeah. And I think it's more complicated than that. And I think... even not on a policy standpoint, on just trying to understand the issue, if that's how you're viewing Vladimir Putin or viewing this issue as just, this is just a old Soviet expansion, you're never going to truly understand what's going on. And I'm not saying I truly understand it, but I definitely have a better understanding than someone who still views Putin as just a nationalist and he's just trying to expand Russia. That's not a good way to be looking at this conflict, especially as, like you said, it starts to expand or has expanded into a global warfare, into world war. That's an ignorant ass view to be taken on Vladimir Putin or the motivations that country has for doing what they're doing,
Yeah, it's not good, man. The concept that I hear this a lot from, almost the more Shapiro-y crowds, the more classically conservative neocons and stuff like that. Putin wants to reconstitute the USSR, the Soviet Union. He wants to do that and all that. That's I don't give that concept much merit. I don't think I don't think Vladimir Putin has any interest in that. And
I think maybe a little bit.
Maybe
but
a
not
little bit.
Not enough to motivate this.
No.
You know?
But then you also have the other side of it is not just the communist aspect, but okay, well, what about the czars and the czarinas, the Russian Empire days of glory and things like that, back when they still owned Alaska, matter of fact, like that era.
Yeah.
When the Queen of England and the Tsar of Russia were cousins, like that type of era. I think that has a little bit more weight, but even then, in the modern world, even taking into account the difference between like Eastern and Western worlds, the structural differences, Vladimir Putin has way more power and control throughout the entire world today in our current system than he ever would trying to revert to one of those older systems like that or bring in that form of power. It's like it doesn't make sense at the end of the day. He's one of the most powerful people on the face of the planet today, right now. It's the reason the whole world's getting into this shit right now.
Why would he risk that?
Yeah.
Just to expand
he knows
the
what
Russian
he is.
empire.
Yeah, he knows what he is, and I don't quite understand. Like I have a feeling I like a theory of why he's doing what he's doing. I like one of the theories behind it.
Well, before you explain it, we should say Putin's explanation of why he's doing it is to denazify Ukraine.
Yes.
Right? Among other things, he said that there are fucking Nazis in every country. As weird as it is, weird as it may seem,
Nazis aren't American concept.
Everybody can be racist.
Word.
So there are Nazis in Ukraine, just as there are Nazis in Russia, and there are Nazis in America. There are Nazis in Canada.
Yes.
There are Nazis everywhere where there are white people that are there to be white supremacists.
Is it called the white or the Azul?
I don't remember what it's called, but yeah. So that was part of his justification is we're going to denazify Ukraine, and that's why we need to invade them. But
because I learned a lot about that Azov battalion, the Azov battalion from Majinwaz, because there was some.
And
when
they
he was
are
on
there
the
fighting.
IRL,
They are there fighting.
They are there
Ukraine.
fighting.
That
They
is
do
happening.
exist. There is a literal Nazi battalion that is in the regular Ukrainian army, and they are fighting, and they are being all fucked up. Yep. They are indeed. There's a video that they talked about on the IRL podcast.
Easy. Take down the whole studio.
We go. About like these Azov soldiers rubbing their bullet tips, the rounds, the end of the round in pork fat before they went to go fight. Right? It's a video. I saw the video. They played it on the show, and that was to illustrate the point of like why is it that we as Americans can't comprehend Putin's concept of denazification, right? Because we have a different concept of what Nazis are. We are Nazis compared to a lot of people in America, right? It's a whole deal, right? These are actual Nazis. So much so that like it's not a white people thing. No, the way this Azov battalion, these people see Ukraine and the Ukrainians as the last bastion of European whiteness. Russia is part of Asia. They see Russians as Asians, hence the racial divide and like the true Nazism and how you could have like a white on white conflict with it and still be an actual card carrying fucking Nazi with tattoos and shit. So it was a fascinating concept that still existed anyways,
and it speaks more to It's not trying to idealize Vladimir Putin, right? I'm trying to impress on people that it's so not simple. It's so complicated. It speaks to the complexity of Vladimir Putin and that he believes what he is doing.
Yeah.
Right?
And that
he believes in what he's doing. Whatever the reason is, he actually believes in it. He genuinely believes in that.
Yep. And the concept of denazification makes sense to a lot of Russian people. We are not that it doesn't the way when he says that it doesn't make sense to us. Is that the IPA?
That is so good.
This
is the tall hole. The
show it off. There it is. Shout out Western Red Brewing, the tall hole pale ale.
This pale ale is fucking delicious. Sorry,
I have a little bad news. It's the last one. I was saving that one particularly for you.
Oh God, that's good.
Yeah, I'm so glad you like it.
God, that's good. I love that.
Good. good. It's one of the best pale ales I've found. Just enough hops,
That's an instant
but a
favorite.
nice
like
maltiness. You can grab a 6-pack at the Hands Grill on your way out.
that's
if
a top,
you want.
That's
It's-
a top fiver.
It's pretty fantastic. $11.99 for a 6-pack.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Score.
Sorry.
Anyways,
Denazification.
we were.
Yeah.
But the fact is, sorry
What's your
to
theory?
wrap it
Yes.
up. Well, no, I'll get to the theory in a
Right,
second.
right.
But to wrap up that aspect of it, right? When Russia talks about denazification and as an excuse for invasion, means it sounds completely ridiculous to us. And it is completely ridiculous, but it plays back home better than it plays in America. Our perspective on this cannot be the same because we have a different worldview altogether. Yeah, word. So that's my thing about. I learned a lot
I'm
about
here
the
for it.
Nazi people
Yeah,
this
that
week
makes
because if you haven't watched that Majid Nawaz episode, by the way, throw that in your queue for this week because
Deal.
it is a great episode.
I will watch
Majid
it this week.
Majid is awesome. So yeah, the why is Russia doing this? I have a theory.
Yeah, the
Right.
theory that because I don't know. At this point, I don't know. I've not given. There hasn't been enough time for me to learn about enough shit to try and contextualize it enough to really understand why this.
Would it make you okay? So for context,
Does it make me Randy? Is that what you're gonna ask
does
me?
this make you Randy, baby? I wish I knew more like Austin Power one-liners. I watched one of those a couple weeks ago. It was so fucking good.
Cold.
It gets kind of uncomfortable when we talk about this.
Let's
right?
hear it. Make me uncomfortable.
Klaus Schwab. Think about Klaus Schwab in the
Okay.
World Economic Forum.
Yeah, New
right?
World Order.
Right, New World Order, and you remember the
Great
Ukrainian.
Reset.
You remember the Ukrainian PM that the viral video came out. I don't remember if we talked about it last episode or not. She put out a TikTok or a social media video with her standing in her, or no, this was an interview. The first one, she was standing in her like apartment with an AK-47.
Oh,
as
the
a
picture.
PM, right?
Okay, so we
But
saw
then
the picture.
Yeah, we
Member
saw
of
the
Parliament,
picture.
Yes.
And then later on, she was on an interview with somebody, and she said, part of the reason is because we have to fight for this new world economic order. You know what I mean?
Oh, God.
The world Western economic order. I can't remember the exact
fuck.
verbiage of it, but it was the new world order,
Right.
and that was that she said that right now. The conspiracy people went nuts, right?
I'm
Because
sure.
they go, "This is it. We're on Russia's side now, guys."
Oh, no. Oh, God.
Oh, word.
Oh, God.
Like within people I know personally, that happened because
no.
because you know how devoted those people are against the world, because they're
Right.
pedophile bloodsuckers of children and,
And
shit.
we're no friends
But-
of the New World Order.
No, we are
but-
not. But to a Ukrainian prime minister that refers to the liberal,
Member of Parliament.
member of parliament. Sorry.
Just so that no one's fucking.
Yes.
You fucking idiot. Yeah, exactly.
To somebody that's not in the EU, that is not part of our new world order.
Right.
That's part of the globalized network of trade. And, the EU, NATO nations, and the Americas have a very different relationship with each other and a different worldview completely than the East does, than Russia does. They don't have the same worldview. They don't necessarily believe
Right.
in globalization and things like that. There's a reason why they're not a massive trade partner of the West, other than like a few things like oil and energy and the important shit that actually matters if they cut you off.
Shit that everybody needs.
Word. We're not buying a bunch of knickknacks and bullshit from Russia all the time. We're not buying the cheap
Russian
Chinese
trinkets.
knockoffs. There's none of those. No. It sounds funny, right? But it's real. We don't do that. They don't rely on the West for trade.
knockoffs. That would be funny.
That would be funny. I want some Estonia. Actually, Estonia is part of NATO. Shit, I forgot about that. But
Give me some Russian knockoffs. I want them.
word, right?
Just kidding.
Some
Go
of those dolls that get smaller.
Yeah.
But they see this as something that will eventually come down to, it's very similar to the communism situation. Communism was at fight because the West was trying to kill communism. Now he sees the West as trying to kill his way of life, which he sees as the way it used to be here. Word. He wants to be in charge of his nation. He wants his and his oligarchs and his system of governance to maintain their way of life.
You don't want a world order. You want a Russian order.
He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't want to
Yeah.
care about what Germany says he should do back home. It's my contention with the EU too.
Right. And
Like, this is where it gets uncomfortable because I don't disagree with them.
And he doesn't even want to necessarily expand Russia. He wants to have a buffer around Russia that
But
the New
that
World
is
Order
bullshit.
can't reach him.
That's bullshit because
Right.
Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania already border Russia and Belarus.
Turkey.
Right? And then in between all three of those, he's got that tiny little pimple of Russian sovereign land that is called shit. I'm gonna have to look at it real quick. It borders Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad
Okay.
borders. It's stuck. Oh shit! I'm gonna have to pull it up on the thing. I'll
Let's
pull
see
it up here in a second. Kaliningrad is this tiny little. Let's go big wide shot. Tiny little.
Excuse me.
You know, it's a piece of Russia
Okay.
stuck between three other countries that
an
has
island?
a nice. Let's go to Google Maps. Here, you know what? We're gonna go over here. We're going to hit the magic 5 button. And now you guys are navigating with me. Here we go. We're going to go here. We're going to zoom out. Okay, real quick, for fuck's sakes. We've talked about this before. Jesus. That's all right. We're lucky enough. This little sliver right here.
Oh,
See that? That's right there.
that's Russia?
Okay. Here's Russia proper. Here's Ukraine. You see the problem. Ukraine's pretty big. Belarus, Russian puppet state. Consider Belarus part of Russia. Now, you also have Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, right on the border.
So you're saying
All three are NATO nations.
In between Poland
Poland.
and Lithuania right
Yes.
there is a little piece of Russia.
This is a little piece of Russia. Look, you go to
No
Kaliningrad,
fucking shit.
Russia. It is part of Russia. This is Russian sovereign land. The other day, we had an issue with Sweden. Sweden, shit, I got to go back.
So they violated. They said they violated airspace.
This is the island right there, Jutland. I think it's pronounced Jutland.
Okay.
But they violated Swedish airspace because they left from Kaliningrad and fucked with their airspace over here. I want to show you something, Donovan. You see this? You see how fucking far away this is?
50 miles.
50 miles. 50 miles. You know what else? I mean, I'm pretty sure this is Russian right here. Hey, look. This says Russia right there. You know what that is? That's Japan. Sapporo.
Ooh.
Okay?
Ooh, that's very close.
It's very close. And it's real close to China and North Korea. It's kind of a fucked up place to be if you're them.
Russia's so big, bro.
So
How do you end up with such a big country?
That's what I'm saying.
Like, that's such an enormous
I don't
piece of
know.
land.
Well,
Russia's
it's
biggest
because a
country
lot
on
of
the
it is
planet,
uninhabitable. Let's put
just
it that way.
frozen and shit.
Right. It's a whole deal.
That
But
makes sense.
um,
Because
But that's what we're
not that
talking
many
about,
people
man.
That live in Russia, right?
No.
How many people live in Russia? What's the population of Russia?
let's see. Russia
More
population.
or less than America.
It's definitely going to be less.
Really?
Yeah, population.
Well, there's only like 330 million in America, right?
I'm in map. Of course, I'm not going to get a good search result map. You know, it goes, hey,
What are you
here's Russian
talking about?
population.
What do you want?
Here's a bunch of Russian places. Okay. Population. Wow, half of America, 144 million
shit.
as of 2020. Yeah. Real talk, bro. It all kind of starts to feel weird when you know about all these little details, right?
Okay, and I don't say this to promote any type of idea. This is just the first thing I thought when you said that. How does America not stomp a Russian dick in the dirt? Like, what is that about?
It's also important to remember, though dated, Russia has the most nuclear weapons out of
Right, okay.
everybody put together.
It's the mutually assured destruction thing.
Yeah,
It's if you try and stomp our dick in the dirt,
yeah,
we gonna nuke you. Okay.
indeed.
Okay.
So,
All right.
you know. So I think that's my theory behind why they're doing this. It's because he sees it as he's threatened culturally. It's not only will he not be in power, he'll probably live and die still under power. But if he wants his Russian heritage and their way of life to continue, he has to stop this. And I disagree with how you're doing it. Right? It would be nice to have like a big liberal conversation and debate about the ethics and the right and wrongs of various ideologies and have a general liberal ideology where nations can kind of do some fuckery, but at the end of the day, we all agree to leave each other alone.
And you mean truly liberal, not in the way that the conservatives like to say liberal.
Yes, not that way.
Truly, actually liberty-minded.
Yeah, that's my theory on why he's doing it. I don't agree with it, but that's what I think it's, and I think it's understandable. You know,
Cheers to that.
You know, it makes sense for an empire to have an excuse to go to war. It makes sense.
The only thing I broke it down to when I was talking to Brian, right? All I can really do, because I don't know that much about the background of it, is like reactionary things, you know? The things that Vladimir Putin is saying, I know for a fact NATO has expanded. We're doling out money all over the place, right?
Yep.
So
we're literally buying weapons that they're fighting against right now.
And if you try and put yourself in the mind of Vladimir Putin, right? And we're talking about it last weekend at the condo, and we're thinking about the same deal as people who are against abortion, right? You have to consider they really believe what they're saying. They're not saying it because they want something else. They actually believe it, right?
Yep.
So if Vladimir Putin does really feel like his way of life is being threatened, right, on an economic fashion, on a global government fashion,
and also tell me it's not.
And then he's also actively seeing the expansion of NATO, right, eastward, and
literally on his borders.
And when you talk about Ukraine specifically, we talked about this a little bit last week, right? It's before the two areas were declared sovereign. It was pretty split on whether or not they actually wanted to be part of NATO.
Yeah.
You know, there's been talks for years and years and years, and they're not part of NATO anymore. Putin and Russian colonialism is to acquire more land mass is obvious. I think that's definitely part of it. I think it's part of it.
I mean,
right?
it makes sense.
I think it's part of it.
It used to be what we did. We took shit from each other.
So in my opinion, right, if NATO wanted Ukraine to be part of NATO, it would have happened by now. It would have happened by now.
Yeah, they don't want that.
You know, and
because that means problems. They don't want that.
Problems.
I got 99 problems, and Ukraine ain't one. So let's keep it that way.
So when the talks happen, the peace talks, you know, the negotiations between the United States and Russia, and the United States is completely unwilling to say we won't admit Ukraine to NATO, even though right now they're saying that's not on the agenda for us to add Ukraine to NATO, even while we're supporting them militarily, financially, right? This is happening. Putin is going to see that and say, why not? You know, there's no give at all, you know, from his perspective. And so why would he do anything else? You know, if this is concerned, why would he do anything else? What other choice does he have? And I'm not like he couldn't do anything else, but he's already been amassing soldiers on the border. The forces are there. It's already happened. Was he going to just go home now? No.
Yeah.
He's not going to just go home now. Just take everyone and go home.
No.
That's not how it's going to work, you know, especially if he's not going to get any capitulation at all from any of the Western nations. He's going to just go for it. This is what I'm preparing for, so I'm just going to go for it.
So I will say this, though. Like, if he was to amass his forces on the borders like he did, and then if he was to back down and just pull everybody back, and then he goes, hey, we were just doing a training exercise. He did that once before, and then never fully pulled everybody back, and then came back with more people, right? We remember seeing that. Now that, he still has the option to make something up and not take an ego hit and pull back and not do anything and not engage. The minute he crossed that line to actually engage, he committed, and he can't go back with nothing.
Right.
Like, he won't go back with nothing. He's not going to take an L.
Now.
He's at least at this point, he's nowhere near exhausted enough that he would take an L. There's so much more left in the chamber for him to keep on firing. So there's no way now, unless the West gives him an excuse for a W, there's no way he's done yet.
Right.
And it's not going to stop.
So it's go ahead.
I was going to say, I wanted to bring this up.
Yes.
This was from this morning.
Okay.
When I woke up, there was an article from The Hill. And I'm just going to read it here. I took some screenshots. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky participated in a call with a bipartisan group of more than 280 members of Congress on Saturday morning. This was this morning. During which the lawmaker said he laid out ways the U.S. could help his country fight against Russia. Over Zoom, Zelensky requested additional airplanes.
Over Zoom?
This was over Zoom.
That's just funny to hear.
Yeah, over China.
Zoom is hosting fucking international peace talks And that's just hilarious.
So anyway, yes. So they've requested additional airplanes, a stoppage of oil purchases from Russia, and the establishment of a no-fly zone over Ukrainian airspace. So he's asking for all the things that the West cannot give, except for airplanes.
Yes.
The only thing we can give him is more airplanes. We cannot stop buying oil from Russia. We cannot do that. We doubled our crude oil purchases while this was happening.
Yeah.
From Russia, right? That was a thing that happened, and it's still happening. Again, we don't need to, but Biden made it so we had to. And on top of that, the no-fly zone, that means direct military confrontation
has to be
with
enforced.
Russia.
It has to be enforced.
Yes.
You can't just declare a no-fly zone and Russia's going to say, oh, shit, okay.
You got to start shooting planes down.
You have to have a presence there to enforce the no-fly zone. So the point of that,
that means actual war.
This is like this is the war hawkery that we were talking about earlier from the conservatives, from the Republicans that are like, we need to establish a no-fly zone. To a lesser extent. I was and still kind of am viewing the talk about nuclear warfare as like softened war hawkery. You know, like you're threatening nuclear warfare. You're like, if we don't get involved, if someone doesn't do something, then there's going to be nukes at hand, you know, which to me, the only logical conclusion from that point is like, so we need to intervene is what you're saying. Like,
and to add to your point, right. Part of me talking about that and noting,
I don't mean just you.
Noting the added possibilities. Let's just put it this way, because during the Cold War, there was a certain possibility that nuclear catastrophe could occur, right? The only point being that in today's world, the likelihood, the chance of using a nuclear weapon of some kind is exponentially greater than it used to be. That's the only thing. And I still, too, like...
Because the scale can be lower than it was at that time.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's going to be noted that somebody crossed, that they crossed a line.
Right.
And then things will escalate to whatever the next plateau is, and I don't want to know what that is. So I don't know if it's going to happen, but the possibility is certainly greater than it used to be. So with that being said, I still don't think he's going to use them, at least not now. So... under the assumption that it's not going to, we can keep wrestling with it because I don't think he's that desperate yet.
Yeah.
But
breaking points, they're making it seem like it's going to happen any day. Like they could launch a nuke at any moment.
Wait, the leftist podcast?
Well, and they'll
thinks that we should go to war with Ukraine or with Russia?
They'll even say they're like, it's not even if it's only a 1% chance, 1% is still a lot. You're like, this is very serious. It's
like the chance to go to
nuclear warfare, nuclear warfare of them launching a nuke,
I don't want to label them as something if I'm being hyperbolic. So,
and they definitely aren't in favor of warfare. I
thought they were very anti-war.
The trouble that I've been having with them is that they aren't posing any type of anything. There is no solution on their end. It's just, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, which I agree with, but you just can't do nothing, even if your strategy is, we aren't going to have any role in this at all. That's not doing nothing. That's excluding yourself. That's choosing to separate yourself from the situation. And I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but that is a possible solution if that's what the argument is,
Yeah.
But yeah, they will expand on it like it is very, very likely and could happen at any moment. And then say, even if it's only a 1% chance, we need to take it very seriously. And so it's a small part of the rhetoric that minimizes the chance, or I don't think even minimizes, I think makes realistic the possibility of nuclear warfare. Because I just struggle to, not to go back to it too much, but gotta imagine if the forces on the ground, someone's got a Geiger counter. Because they know that Russia has nukes, If what you're saying is true about the potential of like very minimal nuclear warfare and things like that, then someone has got to have a Geiger counter. And if they see something that they think looks like it might have been a nuke, they're going to start waving it around. And within 24 hours, we're going to know they definitely launched something over there, even if we didn't know at the time.
We're gonna know that somebody that has an affiliation to one side or the other
Did something.
says that there was nuclear weapons
okay.
used or
Okay.
not. That's that's
Okay.
ultimately
Yeah,
my
yeah.
problem with it is that
You can't trust anybody fully as far as information
no,
goes.
man. This is you got to recognize that this is the first time this level of warfare is happening in our generation.
Right.
And the fact that in our information universe that we live in now, like we colloquially say, in the age of social media or whatever, but it's bigger than that. It's fucking Zoom calls. He doesn't have to fly over here to beg for the United States. He just hops on the Chinese sponsored Zoom and then, hey, there you go.
He probably still has like the camouflage pants on or green pants on, but just
course he
a
does.
suit top, you know?
Yeah. The problem was when they reached back in the vault and pulled the picture of him in the fatigues from like 2 years ago.
God, I
like he
know.
had to dress that same way now
Yeah.
again, which I would hope is just the standard Ukrainian presidential military dress, because then it would be easier to follow. But hey, whatever. But that's the thing. And I don't fault them at all for doing that. Like, I understand how propaganda works, but I also understand that on the internet, when it comes to like little videos and pictures, and I watched a video this morning of a Russian gunship getting fucking surface to air missiled down to the ground and crashing in a fucking field.
no shit.
Like, I just saw it. Just watched it on YouTube this morning. I don't know where that came from. I don't know that. I'm assuming that it's from the conflict. I don't know that.
At the end of this segment, before we break, I'm going to share some Instagram pages of dudes that I have very serious confidence are on the ground there. And so if people are interested in some first-hand accounts of what's happening, one of them, I don't know his name. He's a guy that used to run the account for Forward Observations, and I've sent you some of their shit before. They do like military documentaries. Like, these guys are, this particular dude it seems to be a contractor of some type, but there's no doubt that he's legitimate. He did go to Poland. He is in Ukraine.
And ain't that the problem, man?
So the accounts that I'm gonna share are his, and then some that he has said these are other people I am with over here.
That's called trusted sources.
Yes.
Right. And that's really what that comes down to, is you're kind of doing some journalism-y type stuff by finding a trusted source you believe is honest and trustworthy, and is obviously in the ground because of the nature of that communications. It's not the video you're getting from the mainstream media. It's like, I want to break that apart too, because cable news mainstream media is doing a totally different thing right now than like what the rest of the corporate press is doing, and it's all bad, and so it's hard to weed through. Some of it's true, some of it's not. But when you're getting when you find people that are actually on the ground, like I got a couple of Twitter people that are doing that, but it's mostly tech stuff.
Yeah.
But you know who they are through someone else that you trust, and they know someone. It's a weird thing about sources and methods and shit.
Yeah,
but
I'll pull up some of their shit, and I'll share some of those pages at the end of this segment, so that if you guys want to go on Instagram and get some, what I personally feel are legitimate first-hand accounts of what's happening there from a secret military perspective, like I said, they're not part of the military. These guys could, because they're going by themselves.
Yeah.
So they're not part of the American military. They are maybe contractors at one point who are now taking it upon themselves, because Ukraine established a foreign legion essentially for people to volunteer and go and fight there.
Yep.
If you are so inclined, you can go to your local embassy office.
There's one in Seattle, it's really close to the stadiums down in the International District. That's where it's at.
Sign the paperwork.
Yep.
You can volunteer to go. You will be subject to whatever classifications, whatever questions they want. When you go there, you will not be able to bring your own weapon, most likely.
They ain't American, bro.
No. You will be fighting with the Ukrainian military. But if you are so inclined, there are lots of people, fake ass motherfuckers, send me right now, I'll fucking go, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah. Go do it.
But if you are so inclined, if the avenue exists for you to use a passport to go to Ukraine and assist in the military operations that are happening there under the foreign legions that they have established. So,
what's funny? It's like that, one of my favorite movies of all time. You can't really see it up there. Casablanca. Right. There's a whole storyline about the main character in that, Rick, owns Rick's. He ran guns in Ethiopia during the fighting down there during World War II. He ran guns for the Spanish, or at the beginning of World War I, for the Spanish during the Spanish Civil War. Like the whole concept of a foreigner going to fight for like those, and you know, the opposite line at the time is, you know, he's talking about this. Yeah, isn't it always funny that you found yourself like on the, or I found myself on the side that was losing or something like that. I can't remember the exact line, and I'm shaming myself for saying that now. It's like my favorite movie, but like that's happening right now. There are literally right now there's not that many because it hasn't been around that long, but there's a few Americans over there right now actually fighting for Ukraine.
Yes.
Which is a very, I respect the shit out of people that would do that.
Yeah.
The amount of work, because it's not as easy as that dude's like, yeah, I'll go fucking fight. Like you said, there's a lot involved, man. These are governments agreeing to share their citizens so that one of their citizens can go fight in a war.
Right.
Like it's an official deal. It's not just you get on a plane and go volunteer to fight. That's not how. No. It is so much more in depth for that.
You will go to fight.
Yes. You are being rolled in to the Ukrainian forces in a legion that they have of foreign fighters.
You will be given a select fire AK in most likely and be told to get the fuck out there.
This round is slightly different than what I'm used to.
Yeah. So no, I 100% agree. I used to have. This week I purchased on Amazon the season of a show called Surviving the Cut. And it's about different military inductee programs for like the Rangers and for the Green Berets and just the shit that they have to go through to get into the program, you know? And at the time that it was made and the time that I watched it at first, and that's why I bought it, because I was thinking about it and I was like, yeah, that's fucking inspirational. You know, they're like putting in work and they're fucking going, and then I was watching it. It's like these guys fought for a war that they didn't even understand and that I don't believe in, you know? And so the respect that I had for it the first time that I watched it, I didn't have this time.
That's tough.
And I'm not saying I don't respect the military. I'm not going to qualify anything I'm saying. I don't feel like I need to explain myself. Yeah. The cause that the military stands for now is not what it used to be. And the respect I have for... I even was thinking on the way here as a unhappy, quote unquote, right? Because I'm not unhappy with my life, but with the current station, you know what I'm saying, right? It was like, if it was a different time, I would just join the army or something, you know. But I so much don't believe in the military as it stands now.
You don't even have the option.
That I wouldn't do it. You know, I would not do it. But
that option has existed in America for so many generations. But unfortunately, now, if you believe in the things that those people volunteered to fight for back then, like you can't do that in today's world.
And I don't. And that's what I thought is like, I don't. Because
that's why you didn't become a cop, too.
Because do you know what I'm saying?
Word.
I don't believe in it.
Got to run, guys.
Thank
Later.
You, Lenny.
Larry, it's been real. Lenny. I'm always calling him Larry, so now it's tradition.
Back to it. Thank you, Lenny. It was good having you.
It's great to have you there,
So let's expand a little bit, talk about some economics, right?
Yes.
There's oil. There's things like this going on. So
I'd say consequences of involvement with Russia.
Yes. Right? So one thing that I want to talk about first that I learned about yesterday, and Zeke is going to wag his finger from Indiana at me for not knowing about this, right?
That's right. Deservedly so, Zeke.
2 years ago, there's an oil war that happens between Russia and Saudi Arabia that no one knows about in America. You know?
There was like a few. We remember there are a few reports of explosions of oil plants and things like that, and everybody assumed it was like the Jews.
So it was not reported the way that it should have been in America, because
we were lied to.
Oil prices dropped to literally negative. Like you were having to pay to sell your oil because Russia and Saudi Arabia were flooding the market so insanely during COVID when the demand was so low that they were paying money for it to try and see who was going to do it, right?
I think Biden at the time was like, hey, guys, you need to like not...
I'm not saying no one mentioned it. Right. I'm saying that that's such a crazy, serious world event that the idea that didn't have the main focus of corporate media coverage.
If I'm like remembering little tidbits of it, I'm going, you guys didn't do your job and tell me how important this was.
I read about it and I said, I'm sorry, what? So I literally didn't know that this happened.
Okay.
Right? And that's on me, right? I'll own it. But the market was to the point that American refineries were going bankrupt. They couldn't afford to stay open. We had numerous American refineries that went bankrupt, right? So
I
that
feel like we're going to have to do a deep dive on this one day.
part of the reason we are having to purchase so much Russian oil is because we literally don't have as many refineries as we did during Donald Trump. And I'm not blaming Joe Biden. That's just a time comparison, right? That it was when Donald Trump came into office, we don't have as many refineries now as we did then because so many went bankrupt during this Saudi-Russian oil war. They couldn't afford to stay open.
Okay, so that I had no idea. Because instantly you go, why are we buying all this oil? Let's get back to the Canada American Pipeline. Keystone Pipeline.
So the Keystone XL, we'll get there.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get there. Good. We'll get there.
Yeah, this is first. So
this is first.
there's a lot here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the same time, maybe it's on my phone. At the same time that all these refineries were closing, we also, when Joe Biden came into office, he also canceled all of the new drilling permits that were there. So the drilling permits could no longer be done. And when Jen Psaki has been asked about the stoppage of oil purchases from Russia, that's been one of her responses is, do the oil companies not have enough money to drill the current permits that exist? And it seems to me from what I'm reading that they don't necessarily, they do and they don't have the amount of money that requires to drill the existing permits, but the amount of purchasing that's happening from the United States to other countries doesn't seem to necessitate that, especially when the United States government and the Biden administration in particular has shown such disfavor towards oil and towards fossil fuels and is so intent on pushing towards green energy. It doesn't make sense for the oil companies to invest money in building entirely new rigs and entirely new operations if within the next 5 years they're going to have to be taken down.
Yeah.
So that's part of why we're here. And what I was saying when you were in the bathroom is that when Jen Psaki is asked about America not buying Russian oil, part of her response is, well, do the oil companies not have enough money to drill the current permits that exist? Because they paused all new permits when they came into office. Joe Biden did. And that's what I was saying. It doesn't seem like it makes fiscal sense for them to start entirely new mining operation or drilling operations if you're telling them within the next 10 years you're going to cut it off anyway. Yeah. Why would they invest the money? Especially now when they're not, for a short period of time while Russia is in this predicament, or while they're doing I don't want to minimize anything, but while this is happening, gas prices are high or oil prices are high. 2 years ago, they were negative. They don't have any reason to believe that they will maintain at $100 a barrel, over $100 a barrel. When this article, this is from the Atlantic Council, which is like a whole...
The Atlantic Council?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's like a whole other thing, a whole other...
That's a whole other conversation.
That I fell down that I was like,
No.
What the fuck is this? Yeah, I got distracted. It was bad. I lost a whole evening of research to the Atlantic Council. I swear to God. To like funding, and they have like a Eurasia Council. It was a whole deal. I got lost. It was not good. So either way, March 26th of 2020, the Russian-Saudi oil war, $15 per barrel? That's what I'm saying. So 2 years ago, it was $15 a barrel.
So that's in the midst of the COVIDness.
And if we follow the logic of the Biden administration that oil companies are vicious and evil and all they want to do is mine for as much money as possible, then it doesn't make sense for them to start these new operations on the existing permits, because you're going to make them destroy them in the next 10 years.
Well, yeah.
So following your logic, why would they? Right? Thus puts us, at least partially at this point, of oil dependency on Russia and on other countries, because second part, right? Keystone Pipeline.
Yes.
So the Keystone XL pipeline was never actually operational.
Check.
Right? Only like 8% of it or whatever was actually done. There were
just like the Nord Stream 2.
Yes. There were so many protests and insanity around the Keystone XL pipeline that it was delayed to the point that even though it felt like it was being built for years,
Never really was.
only a really small portion of it
Yeah.
actually was built.
Yep.
So there's a lot of Republicans that it's like weird, not weird, I guess, but it's coded language where they're saying, well, if he wouldn't have canceled the Keystone XL pipeline, then we wouldn't be in this position, which makes it sound like we were getting a large amount of our oil production from the Keystone XL pipeline, which is not true.
Which is not true.
But you can
Speculation is involved.
you can speculate that
Yep.
if the Keystone XL pipeline was completed,
Yes.
then we would not be as dependent as we are on Russian oil at this point in time. Even though you can't even say that it would definitely be done by now if we had followed through, because even
Probably
just
wouldn't
off
be.
of the protests, people were dying. Like shit was
Word.
bad on the Keystone XL protests. So
They
yeah.
might have touched on it slightly,
Maybe.
adjacently in Yellowstone, the show. I'm pretty sure. But that's a thing that nobody, I think, really accounts for at this point. Is the speculation is what is. It's not even the actual price.
no.
I mean, it affects the price because people look at it and say, okay, in 5 years, Keystone's going to be done and X amount of volume is going to be flowing through this, that, and the other thing. And they take all these different downstream effects into account. And then they say, okay, and due to looking at that, looking at how much we think the price is going to be at that point in time, that's how much it's worth now. And it's this weird, and it happens on Wall Street all the time with different stocks and all this stuff, but that's essentially what we're talking about. The price of a consumable good traded between nations. And so we look at Nord Stream 2, and if Nord Stream 2 is going to come online, we know for a fact that there's going to be a shit ton of oil flowing right into Germany, and it's going to affect the price this much because they're going to charge this much probably, but that they also have this kind of manipulation factor,
Right.
blah, 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 and then same with this and from Canada and all this. So they ultimately will come down to a price. They speculate on what that's going to be. And our price per gallon at the pump right now is based off of speculation, not true cost.
Right.
And a lot of that's just the taxes that go with it too, which is another aside. But
Yeah.
so that's
Oil
the
futures-
importance of those things.
Oil futures is a whole industry of investing and like that. Yeah.
You're betting on the future, bro.
Yes.
It's a weird deal.
Yes.
It's also yeah.
So this whole point of, I don't want to say it's completely wrong, the Keystone XL thing, because there could be an element of truth to it.
Yeah.
If everything were to work out perfectly, there is no reason to believe that it would definitely be done by now, and we would definitely be getting oil flowing from Canada to now from the tar sands and all this shit.
Have you seen how fast most government projects go?
Yeah.
Like how fast freeways get built and modified? Years and years and years and years and years and years.
Yeah, it's possible, but I wouldn't bet on it. So
Yeah.
if that's something that you guys are saying, I've heard at work several times this week.
If we
Keystone
just
XL
look at
pipeline,
Keystone-
Keystone XL.
Yeah.
And I was never like, oh yeah, totally. I was like, yeah, that might make sense, And then after a little more research, I'm like, well, it doesn't really make that much sense. So,
Yeah.
so if that's something that you're saying or something you're hearing be said a lot, you can tell someone. Maybe. You might be right. It
Yeah.
might, but
There's a little bit of there's a grain of truth in there that might be
Yes.
true, but it's only an aspect of it.
yes. So there's also the portion of just the refocus of the Biden administration, like I was saying, towards greener energies, even like natural gas and things like that. We get more of our energy from that than we do from coal and oil nowadays. So
Yeah. That's weird.
there's just not our market anymore. We fucked ourselves out of that, and this is kind of what you get when you compromise your industry on something that you still depend on, and you try and leverage that towards the future of sustainability or whatever you want to call it. When you leverage your industry on the future, this is what you get, because you can't predict warfare. You can't
Nope.
predict leaders from around the globe who might be losing it a little bit. You can't predict any of that.
Nope.
You
You can't predict when, say, a new type of virus comes around and all of a sudden all imports into the nation are shut down for whatever reason and you can't make your own medicine. Like, you don't think about those types of things. Like, this is all, and I hate to say it, but it lends a bit of credence to the theory behind why Vladimir Putin is fighting the way he's fighting like this, is because He would rather make that call for himself, not be bullied into it by a league of dumbass Western woke-ass nations. If you don't think he sees us being all woke and shit, I mean, there's a reason we had that culture war between, like, remember those Russian army commercials against our super woke, happy, and then the fucking FBI woke-ass commercials and shit. If you don't think that he knows what we're up to and how we're thinking and how we're doing all this, I mean, hell, they've been manipulating it for decades through social media. Obviously, we talked about that before. Like, we're a bunch of pansies, and he thinks that his people aren't. There's definitely credence behind that, and he doesn't want Russians to be that.
Right.
So it gets a little bit more credence because it's a bad situation when we essentially are at economic war with somebody that we are reliant on for oil, for energy. Like, that's not a good spot, man.
And because so much of Russia's economy relies on the globe as well, exporting things, to Zeke's point earlier, their economy is extremely fragile. So Vladimir Putin also knows what he has invested in this. And it's at this point, especially the further it goes, more make or break.
Yeah.
You've got to commit or turn around. And turn around doesn't seem like a very Putin thing to do.
Especially when, more or less, it's your personal money that's running it, not this ephemeral taxpayer debt. No, this is his personal money, man. All the oligarchs, man, they all got say in what's going on. They're paying for this.
Right. They're paying for it. And now I have this article that's from MSN. The banks are stopping Putin from tapping a $630 billion war chest Russia stockpiled before invading Ukraine. And this is what Lenny had actually touched on earlier.
Shout out Lenny again.
Yeah, here, I'll send this article to you so you can pull up. Oh, not paste.
I love hanging out with Lenny on every other Saturday.
Oh, God.
Oh, no, did the new computer take a dive?
No. Oh, Jesus Christ. That's not what I wanted.
Your narration while you navigate the computer, dude, is worthy of a podcast all on its own.
Copy.
What can I say?
Signal. Colin.
Yee.
Boom.
Hot diggity daff down. Do it.
There it is.
B-dubs.
Okay. This is the MSN article.
Boom.
Banks are stopping Putin from tapping the $630 billion war chest. Starting at the beginning while Colin pulls it up. Russia's central bank has been stockpiling foreign reserves ever since Russia last invaded Ukraine when President Vladimir Putin annexed Crimea in 2014. Since then, Russia's holdings of foreign currency and gold have almost doubled, ballooning to $630 billion today from $368 billion 7 years ago. Excuse me. Your brother said that he thought or was hearing that they were going to start a cryptocurrency, them in China, a gold-backed cryptocurrency. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, there's not going to be enough control.
On Monday, the U.S., Japan, and European Union barred Russia's central bank from tapping into the billions of foreign reserves Moscow had saved up in their banks. As Russian forces unleash their assault on Kiev and other Ukrainian cities, we are resolved to continue imposing costs on Russia that will further isolate Russia from the international financing system and our economies. The leaders of the allied economies said in a joint statement announcing the accounts freeze on February 26th. So
the goal...
We talked last week or last episode about the way they're going to fund themselves a little bit.
Yes.
Right? So they're supposedly stopping them from tapping into this money. Think they're probably going to find a way to get some of this money. And at the same time, we talked about earlier, India and China have already come out. China's their largest trading partner, to my understanding, said we will continue to have economic ties with them. We will continue to operate on a normal basis. We're not going to change anything. Fuck you guys, We don't agree with the invasion of Ukraine, but we also don't agree with America involving itself in all of the stuff and the things around the globe. And so we're just going to do our own thing over here. And at the same time, I just got this notification, MasterCard and Visa suspended operations in Russia after the invasion.
Yes.
You can no longer use your Visa or MasterCard. Can we take 1 second on a New World Order tilt, right? And we don't even need to expand on it too bad, but to just note, for everyone to take note of how simple it seems to be to cancel your ability to purchase anything at any point in time with electronic money.
Super weird, man.
If you live in Russia, you as of 4 days ago, you could no longer use Netflix or Spotify or Disney Plus or any of these things that you
Freaking
purchased.
Facebook.
Nothing. It was all gone. Your media has been taken off of Reddit. It's been taken off of Facebook, right? Meta, you know? Now we're talking about your debit cards. You cannot use your debit card. You cannot use your credit card. I am not placing a policy statement either way on Russia or these financial decisions. I am pointing out to you and asking you to not forget that someone who you don't know has the ability to turn off your power to purchase anything, your power to get money, your power to do anything within the currently existing financial system. Someone else currently has the power to turn that off right now.
Mm-hmm. And not to say that Russia doesn't have that control over their own citizens, but what would make you think, knowing that that's happening to them now, why would that make them want to fight for a system that is capable of doing that to them? Like that's why I keep saying, man, this one's complicated, dude. Like that's not right. But here we are. I don't know if I want to go off on authoritarianism tilt right now, but because it's not what it's about. But I mean, you could get it. That's not cool. Like, I understand. Yeah, that's awesome. It can end wars. Sure. Maybe. Cut off the money supply. Besiege them economically. You know, mind you, there's always going to be a black market for everything, including everything a government needs to operate. They can go to China or they can go to North Korea. And China can go through North Korea, and boom, Russia's funded. And North Korea gets a shit ton of money on top of that. Look at that. That could happen.
Which they would invite at any time.
Why would they not? China and North Korea, isn't China North Korea's only trading partner?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Russia. I don't know. But, like, why not? Let's just funnel that shit through there. North Korea gets better and more stronger, and Russia gets everything it needs. It gets an endless flow of American cash that goes to China. Like, it's totally possible.
We are then actively funding the opposition to the war that we are fighting. We are funding both sides of a war when that happens.
Yeah, because at that point,
which is what's happening right now.
It is.
China just admitted that. Yeah, that we are still trading with China. We're still giving Russia money for oil because we have, and like you said, right? At this point in time, we don't have the ability to just stop purchasing oil from Russia.
Nope.
It would increase prices to ridiculous amounts as far as gasoline goes for cars, all that type of stuff. We couldn't do it, right? We don't have the ability. I was going to talk a lot of shit about Jen Psaki earlier for saying that type of stuff. It is true. It doesn't sound good, and it doesn't sound good because it doesn't need to be this way. We've leveraged ourselves to a position that we now don't have the ability to control our own energy future like we did under Donald Trump.
Yep.
Right? During Donald Trump, whether it's, you can kind of run the statistics either some ways or different ways. Mm-hmm. We were net exporters during Donald Trump because we focused more on fossil fuels and natural gas and less on green energy.
Yes.
We were exporting energy at that point, net exporters of energy.
Yep.
Right?
For the first time ever.
For the first time ever. That did happen under Donald Trump, right? Yep. It was a continuation of a trend from Obama, like many things during Donald Trump, but that did happen. Yeah. That is true, right? After that, the administration changed to the point that we don't even have the ability to be energy independent anymore. We don't, it's no longer an option.
Yeah.
You know? So at this point in time, we don't have a choice. But the administration is also unwilling to admit that they are the reason that we don't have a choice.
Yeah. And just to kind of hammer that point home, right? We can't afford to lose Russia because of the energy aspect of it. Now, when you think about what's going to happen when Russia needs funding and they go through China and we buy everything from China, next thing you know, we're going to be at war with China. But, I mean, the reliance we have on Russia is exponentially smaller than the reliance we have on China. Like, if we didn't have China, literally America would fall apart. Like, if we could not do trade with China, there is no America tomorrow. There's fucking chaos, man. It is bad. So that's, and like I said, this is just Russia. This is just the Russian aspect, which is scary. So I don't know. I don't like that. When you look at it in those terms, it's kind of makes you want to like drill baby drill, or like for me, I'd rather just develop nuclear. I don't want drill baby drill, you know.
No, I would rather take all this. Let's talk about this real quick, and then if you have anything else to hit on this, then we'll do that. Okay. But then I think we can hit the break after this. So there's one of the things that Joe Biden hit on in the State of the Union, right, was about
a throwback
and he talks
to 2 out of 4
consistently about is money to subsidize the production of charging plants, right? Like just places where you can stop to charge your electric vehicle.
Oh, charging stations. Yeah.
But like a fuckload of them, like a lot, you know? And one thing that I heard that made me think a lot about that.
We have an initiative in our state for that, by the way.
Which is weird because we don't subsidize the production of new gas stations.
No,
I don't think we ever.
No.
So when the industry is created, for what reason, if the demand is there, why do we need to subsidize the supply if the demand exists?
And you want to know the even funnier part about that is the supply that we are subsidizing. It's all European made.
It comes from yes. It's an international purchase because apparently we fucking hate Tesla. We want to talk about electric cars, but not mention Tesla at all. We want to talk about job creation, but not mention Tesla at all.
Like, right? Yeah, you go to the grocery store, bro, and you see the few charging stations that were put in because you get tax credits. There's incentives on the legal side of development. The funniest thing in the world, I just built a gas station, right? I helped build a gas station that has electronic charging stations at it. Mind you, they're not there yet because the back order is literally...
Oh, I'm sure.
It's Europe. Europe's going to war right now. They have other important things to do than import electronic gas station or chargers to here. But all the ones around here are generic. None of them are Tesla. It's fucked up that even with that government money being subsidized, you get the tax break, right? That's money the government isn't getting. They're losing out on.
Right.
And then they also don't get to support an American company like Tesla and the American economy. No, it's all overseas, bro. Like, that's not a good situation. And
where I bet if you paid Elon Musk to do it, he would have multiple attachments at the stand. So no matter what kind of, even if you didn't have a Tesla, you could still charge it there because he don't give a fuck. He's getting the government money.
Yeah. And you tell me for a second that they would not be cheaper if we bought them from the fucking gigafactory in fucking Texas,
yeah,
right? Or the one in California. I don't know where they got plants, man. Like over in Germany, whatever. I don't care. But like, there's none of those around.
It's weird. Yeah, the subsidization of the electronic charging stations seems very odd to me because we're subsidizing European countries. We're like European companies, you know.
Wait. Almost as if there's this giant new world order where certain things are handled by certain people. Otherwise, there's going to be problems like, I don't know. It's kind of like mafia systems of protection and things like that, and extortion, you know. Almost like the EU's extorting us to buy electronic vehicle charging stations with them. And, I don't want to go off on this tangent. So I'm going to end that. It is super weird that was part of that speech. And all that means is we're paying for them. There's more money subsidized. So I actually almost kind of forgot what the point of that question was. Sorry, I just went off about fucking charging stations,
that
man.
Was perfect. That was perfect. It was just about the subsidization of charging points. I just don't understand why. That was the point.
It's a fucking thing, and it drives me nuts.
It doesn't make sense. Except we don't subsidize gas stations. I don't know why.
No, man.
Especially if now Joe Biden is declaring himself a capitalist. You know, I'm a capitalist. I just believe in competition, but not American competition, global competition, and really specifically within European countries, and not so much in America. That would be my preference, would be not in America.
Right. I think we're ending this segment. I think we've run out. So I want to end it on this weird, hilarious thing. Joe Biden, I have a theory now.
Okay.
Joe Biden, because what that is, right, is this weird reliance on this, like, international deals and all this stuff. You know, but he calls himself a capitalist. Well, Joe Biden comes from where? Comes from Delaware.
Delaware.
What
Right.
is the largest industry in Delaware? Being a corporation.
Yes.
Right? You go there for the tax
Housing
breaks.
businesses.
Indeed. Now,
Being an address.
so living in Delaware thinking that true good capitalism is corporatism. Now he is in government and he is in power and he thinks of world powers as companies that essentially act like corporations,
Right.
buying and selling little pieces of each other, making fucking lethal deals with each other, all this stuff. One world government. That's what Putin sees and that's what he's scared of.
Biden.
Yeah.
But isn't it funny?
Well, Biden's just a piece of it, but
Isn't it funny that that's what, okay, no, I got
Yeah.
you. That's what Putin sees. Isn't
That's
it
what he
funny though that that's how Joe Biden is running the country, but Donald Trump couldn't be president because he's going to run it like a business.
He's a
and
businessman.
America's not a business.
that's right.
But isn't that funny?
Well, and it's fucking hilarious
That's awesome.
because there's a fundamental difference between business and being a corporation.
Ooh,
You could be a
word.
business and
Okay.
not a corporation, but you
Yes.
can't be a corporation without being a business.
Okay. Look at you.
Word. Look at that. So on that note,
Yep. I want to thank you guys. Make sure we're going to take this final break here. When we come back, we're going to be gone for 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
When we come back, we're going to be here for the final segment. Going to be a little grab bag segment going on. It's a big discussion. This is a long one, but this is a very important topic. Yeah. it's
Ukraine,
big.
Russia, it was like it was going to happen.
Exactly. So, I don't know that I didn't even mention in the beginning of the show that these were going to be released separately.
Oh shit!
Just that we were going to be doing it differently.
Damn, I'm gonna have to
So-
cut this clip first now.
Uh-oh. That's okay.
You know what? We'll do it in the intro, of the next one, and then I can cut that, throw it at
we
as
can
a primer. It's fine.
Record a segment at the
We
end
could.
and just put that at the beginning of the first. You know,
We could
you
totally
can
do
even
that.
put in the beginning of all 4 this week, just so everyone knows what's good. But
Yeah, we did take a few takes on a promo last episode,
exactly.
so
you guys will be seeing that in the next
yeah.
few days. But I want to thank everyone again for watching us. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share this. Excuse me. We'll be back in 3 minutes for the 4th segment. You can watch us here on our youtube.com/saltedstreets. We also have our instagram.com/ excuse me, these fucking beers.
And all right.
/saltofthestreets. Facebook, facebook.com/saltofthestreets. It's not fuckfacebook.com. It's facebook.com/saltofthestreets.
But also fuck Facebook.
But also fuck
There
Facebook.
it
You can
goes.
find all this on our website, saltofthestreets.com, including our personal social media. I am at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. And Colin is at Big Bird Alfie on both of those things. Patreon.com/saltofthestreets. That's it. Go there, become a patron. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought.